Welcome back to the channel, and thank you for joining us in this difficult moment. Within the last 24 hours, we've lost not just celebrities, but cherished voices, beloved faces, and irreplaceable souls who helped shape the heart and spirit of our nation. Their presence, their passion, and their purpose touched millions, leaving behind legacies that will echo through time. Saying goodbye is never easy, especially to those who brought comfort, joy, and inspiration into our lives. Today, we take a moment not only to grieve, but to celebrate the lives they lived, the dreams they chased, and the light they shared with the world. If their story, their art, or their voice ever meant something to you, even for a moment, I invite you to show your respect by liking this video. Let's honor them together with love, remembrance, and gratitude. Thank you for being here. Let's begin. Terry "Hulk" Hogan Bolas passed away on July 24, 2025, marked the end of a legendary chapter in wrestling history. At 71 years old, he passed away after suffering cardiac arrest at his Clearwater, Florida home. Paramedics responded quickly, but could not revive him. TMZ was first to break the news, citing dispatch records and the absence of foul play. Hogan's longtime friend and manager, Chris Valolo, later confirmed the tragic event. His sudden departure, while shocking, came after months of rumors about his declining health. Rumors Hogan's team had previously denied. From his debut in the late 1970s to his rise in the 1980s, Hulk Hogan redefined wrestling's cultural significance. With his signature Hulkamania persona, he inspired fans to say your prayers and take your vitamins. His iconic WrestleMania matches and unforgettable charisma helped propel WWE into a global powerhouse. Beyond the ring, Hogan became a pop culture figure, starring in films, launching a reality show, and making his mark on television with Hogan Knows Best. Few entertainers have bridged the gap between sports and mainstream fame the way Hogan did. The tributes were immediate and heartfelt. Triple honored him during SmackDown with a video montage and 10-bell salute. WWE issued a formal statement calling Hogan one of pop culture's most recognizable figures. Wrestling peers and celebrities flooded social media with memories. Sylvester Stallone called him a true friend and hero, and Vince McMahon noted Hogan's pivotal role in wrestling's golden age. Ric Flair openly cried in interviews, remembering how Hogan supported him through family illness and financial hardship. Close friends and family also shared moving tributes. Nick Hogan posted a heartfelt message saying, "He was more than my father, he was my hero." Brutus Beefcake mourned missed chances to see him one last time. Hogan's wife, Sky Daly, expressed deep sorrow, writing, "I believed we had more time." The wrestling world may have lost its greatest icon, but the legacy of Hulk Hogan, the hero, the showman, the symbol of strength, will never fade. His roar will echo in the hearts of those who still believe. Tom Lehrer passed away on Saturday, July 27, 2025, at the age of 97 at his home in Cambridge, Massachusetts. His longtime friend, David Herter, confirmed his death, stating simply, "Lahr died Saturday at his home in Cambridge, Massachusetts. No specific cause of death was provided." From the outset, his passing was shared quietly, reflecting the restrained public figure he always remained. Lehrer, who spent much of his life avoiding public adulation, left the world much in the way he lived in it, with a quiet, measured grace. Tom Lehrer was not a typical entertainer, a Harvard-trained mathematician with a gift for melody and abiding wit. He took to the piano to express sharp and often uncomfortable truths about society. His earliest works in the 1950s and 60s challenged prevailing attitudes on race, war, religion, and nuclear anxiety. Songs like Poisoning Pigeons in the Park, The Vatican Rag, and National Brotherhood Week were set to playful, even whimsical tunes, yet carried messages that cut to the bone. Lehrer's ability to juxtapose cheery melodies with lyrics that exposed society's hypocrisies made him a singular voice in American culture. Unlike many artists, he never shied away from controversy, but instead leaned into it with a smirk and a rhyme. Though he stepped away from the stage in the late 1960s, Lehrer's intellectual curiosity found new outlets in academia. He taught mathematics at Harvard and later at the University of California, Santa Cruz, where he also offered courses in musical theater and the intersection of music and social commentary. His delight in education was genuine. He once remarked that writing the educational tune Silent E for the PBS children's show The Electric Company may have been his most enduring contribution. His humility was part of his charm. He often downplayed his cultural impact, calling his musical career a mere diversion. Yet his influence quietly deepened. In 2020, Lehrer made the radical choice to release all his songs and lyrics into the public domain, ensuring that future generations could access, adapt, and enjoy his work freely. Upon his passing, the tributes were as understated yet heartfelt as the man himself. Weird Al Yankovic, a musical humorist deeply influenced by Lehrer, called him a living musical hero. Randy Newman noted that Lehrer was one of the great American songwriters, as good as there's been in the last half of the 20th century. Dr. Demontoto, who curated novelty and satirical music for decades, declared Lehrer the best musical satist of the 20th century. These voices from varied corners of entertainment and scholarship recognized in Lehrer not just a humorist, but a profound observer of the human condition. Lehrer left behind no heirs, no self-promotion, and no farewell tour, just his songs now belonging to the world. Malcolm-Jamal Warner died suddenly on July 20th, 2025 during what should have been a peaceful family vacation in Costa Rica. While swimming with his daughter in the waters of Lemon, a powerful riptide pulled them under. Onlookers managed to save the child, but Warner, despite extended CPR, could not be revived. Local officials later confirmed that he died from drowning. The news first surfaced in People magazine and quickly echoed through media and social networks, met with an overwhelming wave of sorrow. His colleagues and friends shared tributes that revealed not only the depth of their loss, but the soul of the man they knew. Trice Ellis Ross remembered his gentleness and sense of purpose. Angela Bassett, still shaken, called him a source of calm amid chaos. Regina King's words, "Ride in power," hinted at a shared history and enduring respect. Beyonce honored him publicly, and Bill Cosby, with visible grief, referred to Warner's death as akin to losing his own child. These weren't rehearsed statements. They were expressions of genuine affection for someone who left lasting marks in quiet, personal ways. Warner's career was wide-ranging and rich in intention. From his start as Theo, the endearing son in The Cosby Show, to mature roles in The Resident Suits and 911, he evolved without losing authenticity. He earned a Grammy, wrote poetry, played jazz bass, and launched Not All Hood, a podcast that opened difficult but necessary conversations about mental health. He was never just an actor. He was a teacher, a mirror, a safe space. He believed in art that healed, and he lived that belief every day. His passing leaves a stillness that feels unnatural, not because he was loud, but because his quiet mattered. He showed that true strength doesn't boast. It listens. It guides. Malcolm-Jamal Warner leaves behind a body of work that comforted, challenged, and inspired. But more than that, he leaves behind a way of being in the world that taught us all something about decency and heart. Harold Bud Carr passed away on July 20th, 2025 in Santa Barbara, California at age 79. The Santa Barbara Independent announced, "With heavy hearts and profound sadness, we share the passing of Harold Bud Carr on July 20th, 2025. He underwent what was expected to be a routine medical procedure just days before and died from complications surrounded by family members. Bud began his professional journey as a music agent in the 1970s, representing iconic talents such as The Cream, James Taylor, Bob Seger, Carole King, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, and Eric Clapton. In 1980, he founded his own management company and guided platinum-selling acts like Kansas, Captain Tenney, Heatwave, and Slaughter. He later pioneered the field of music supervision in film, overseeing soundtracks for more than 100 motion pictures and TV series. His collaboration with director Oliver Stone began with Salvador in 1986 and endured across titles such as Platoon, Born on the 4th of July, Natural Born Killers, The Doors, JFK, Snowden, and others. Carr also worked with filmmakers like Michael Mann, James Cameron, Norman Jewison, and Tate Taylor, and supervised music for films including The Terminator, Heat, Twister, Hotel Rwanda, and Donnie Brasco. In a 2016 interview, he described his process with Oliver. "We start a project together in script stage, putting together assortments. Directors will become attached with songs." Beyond his film career, he produced documentaries such as Miracles Out of Nowhere, The Kansas Story, and 911 at Ease, demonstrating his belief in music and story as healing forces. In his community, Carr was known as a generous mentor and spirited local supporter in Santa Barbara. The obituary noted, "To the world, Bud was a legendary force, but to those lucky enough to know him, he was so much more. A loving husband, a devoted father, a wise mentor, and a cherished friend. He is survived by his wife Jean, age 55, and 3 children. Elizabeth Carr Ernst, Ryan, and Jonathan. His legacy lives on in the standards he set for music supervision. Carr helped define the role, showing how music could elevate narrative and emotion in film. He opened doors for many current supervisors and became a benchmark in the industry. His work still studied, emulated, and felt by storytellers and audiences alike." Chuck Mangione passed away on July 22, 2025 at 84 in his Rochester home. His family publicly shared. "The family of Chuck Mangione is deeply saddened to share that Chuck peacefully passed away in his sleep at his home in Rochester, New York on July 22, 2025. His official website and manager reiterated the message in similar words. Raised in Rochester, Mangione was born on November 29, 1940 into a musical Italian-American family. His father often invited jazz greats like Dizzy Gillespie and Carmen McCree to dinner, shaping his early exposure to music. He and brother Gap formed the Jazz Brothers in high school before attending Eastman for formal training. Throughout his career, Mangione became celebrated for blending jazz craftsmanship with popular appeal. His signature song, Feel So Good, helped introduce smooth jazz to mainstream listeners, topping the adult contemporary chart and triggering global recognition. His Grammy wins, including Belova and Children of Sanchez, reflected both artistic and emotional depth. His music appeared in films like Fargo and Doctor Strange, and he joined King of the Hill as a fictional version of himself, extending his influence into television. Mangione remained deeply rooted in his hometown. Family members recounted how he would bring student musicians on tour and always return to Rochester to perform. As one niece said, he wrote the soundtrack to our whole family's life. Eastman's dean and Rochester's mayor offered tributes. Mangione epitomized the strength, resilience, and compassion of Rochester communities. There are musicians who change the charts, and others, like George Kouweminses, who changed the rhythm of memory itself. He died on July 22, 2025 at 77 at home in the Netherlands, surrounded by his family. After being diagnosed with ALS in 2020, he stepped away from performing, but never from music. His death was confirmed through Dutch outlet AD and received with a quiet outpouring of love. For over 50 years, he had been the driving melodic force behind Golden Earring, a band whose sound defined a generation of European rock. Cesar Sutterwijk, his drummer and friend for half a century, said only what mattered. "That was the best time of my life." Kouweminses' family too spoke from the heart, remembering him as a husband, father, and grandfather, someone who gave his full self to those he loved. Even as his body weakened, his mind and music stayed sharp. He kept writing, kept dreaming. The upcoming tribute concert in January 2026 at Rotterdam's Ahoy Arena is a testament to how many lives his art touched and how deeply Kouweminses' journey was never about celebrity. It was about sound. Born and raised in The Hague, he co-founded Golden Earring with Rianuz Gerritsen while still a teen. The band's rise was steady and sincere. Songs like Radar Love became radio staples around the world. While Twilight Zone marked one of the rare times a European band cracked the American top 10. Through it all, George remained humble. He let his guitar speak for him, elegant, fierce, and full of character. His passing is a loss that echoes far beyond the music world. It's felt in the quiet moments when a song plays unexpectedly or a lyric stir something personal. George Kooimans didn't shout his greatness. He played it, lived it, and left it behind in every note. His was a voice of consistency, of craft, and of quiet strength. And it will continue to resonate for years to come. Gary Smith, the Emmy-winning producer whose work helped define the magic of live television, passed away peacefully in Los Angeles on July 18, 2025. He was 90. A family representative confirmed the news, though no cause of death was shared. Over 6 decades, Gary's gentle touch behind the camera elevated programs that still live in people's memories. From The Judy Garland Show and Hallelujah to tributes for legends like Elvis and Struyand, his work wasn't flashy. It was thoughtful, precise, and deeply human. Born in 1935 and trained in scenic design, Gary began at CBS before stepping into producing, a transition that launched an extraordinary journey. With Dwight Hemian, he co-created specials that blended performance with storytelling. He wasn't just a producer. He was a guide, a quiet architect of emotional connection. Whether it was a Tony Awards ceremony or a national celebration like Liberty Weekend, he helped viewers feel like they were part of something larger. Those who knew him best remember his humility. Gary always celebrated others, said his wife Maxine. His daughter Daisy said he taught them that real success means helping others shine. Behind the scenes, Gary was generous with advice and steady in times of pressure. He was the calm in every storm, said a colleague. His shows never felt overproduced. They felt cared for. Gary is survived by his wife, 5 children, 5 grandchildren, and many colleagues who became lifelong friends. His private funeral was held July 22nd, and a public memorial is planned for September 20th. His family asks that donations go to Share, Inc., a cause close to his heart. The screen may go dark after the credits roll, but Gary Smith's quiet influence will keep glowing in every story he helped tell and every person he helped uplift. Ray DeJohn, the voice behind so many laughs and the founder of one of Brooklyn's most beloved comedy spaces, passed on July 14th, 2025, just hours before what would have been his 64th birthday. Ralph McDaniels, the cultural curator behind Video Music Box, shared the news, remembering Ray as both colleague and friend. Ray's final social media post, a warm invitation to his birthday roast, now carries the quiet weight of a final farewell. Ray wasn't just a performer, he was a builder. With the creation of 275 Park Laugharne in 2023, he gave Brooklyn something it had never had. A black-owned comedy venue rooted in purpose and inclusion. That space wasn't just a club. It was a gathering place, a home for voices that needed to be heard. In the hours after his passing, tributes echoed from across the city and beyond. "Thank you for putting so many of us on," wrote Ayanna Dukey. Others recalled Ray's kindness, his generosity, and his unwavering belief in the next generation of performers. The Comedy and Harlem Tribute called him a connector of people, a pillar, a heartbeat of this city. His work on stage and off was deeply rooted in service. As someone who overcame a debilitating stroke and lived through addiction, he understood pain. But he also knew how to meet it with purpose. There was a certain grace to the way Ray carried his story. He never performed his struggles, but he didn't hide them either. Instead, he transformed them into tools for connection, especially when working with youth battling substance abuse. His ability to stand on stage and create joy came from a place of truth. And that's what people loved most. Not just the jokes, but the sincerity. Ray John's light hasn't gone out. It's been passed on in every laugh he inspired and every soul he helped find their voice. Veteran Papa Jake Larson lived long enough to see the world change many times. On July 17th, at the age of 102, he passed away peacefully at his home in Lafayette, California. The news was shared by his granddaughter Michaela, who helped him reach millions of people through social media. He went peacefully, she wrote, still telling jokes to the end of his life. It was a fitting farewell for a man who spent decades turning grief into stories and stories into connections. Jake was born in rural Minnesota in 1922. At 15, hungry to serve, he joined the National Guard by pretending he was older. By 21, he was helping plan the Normandy landings. On D-Day, he landed on Omaha Beach and somehow weathered the chaos, gunfire, and loss. He later fought in the Battle of the Bulge, one of the war's most brutal campaigns. He received the Bronze Star and the French Legion of Honor. But when asked, he always said, "I'm not a hero, I'm just a guy who came home." What sets Jake apart is the way he carries his past. He doesn't hide it with pride or anger, he shares it gracefully. Later, with Michaela's help, he turned to TikTok to speak directly to a younger generation. The videos are short and simple. Memories of war, quiet reflections on peace, and the occasional witticism. "I'm just a country boy," he once said. "But somehow I got 1 million followers." He never set out to be a star. That's what made him. Jake's true talent was making personal history. He helped people understand that war is not just about the battles. It's about the people in them. The friends he lost, the places he missed, the message he kept repeating. Peace is worth fighting for, but war should never be taken lightly. His legacy lies not in medals, but in the hearts he touched with his sincerity and warmth. He gave us a quiet window into a world most of us only read about, and he did it with dignity. Jeff Tiger, a steady and respected presence in the baseball world for more than 40 years, died on July 19, 2025 at his home in Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania after a private battle with cancer. He was 63. The news came from both his family and the Oakland Athletics, where Jeff had worked as a longtime scout. His passing didn't come with headlines, but with quiet, heartfelt tributes from those who worked beside him. Jeff was drafted by the New York Mets in 1980 after a standout high school career in New Jersey. He pitched in the majors for 3 teams, Philadelphia, Minnesota, and Chicago, and spent many more years in the minors and independent leagues. He was never one for self-promotion. He simply loved the game. Whether it was a AAA title run in the 80s or one more season in independent ball, he kept showing up year after year. When he joined the A's as a scout in 2003, he brought that same quiet determination to a new chapter. Over 2 decades, he helped discover and develop players, including Andrew Bailey. Former A's GM Billy Beane said he knew pitchers inside and out. You could see how much he cared just by being near him. That care, quiet, consistent, and sincere, defined everything Jeff did. Jeff wasn't flashy, but he left a lasting mark. He listened more than he spoke, gave without asking, and showed up with integrity every time. The Red Hawks, one of his last baseball homes, remembered him as a constant leader. In an industry that can be loud and fast-moving, Jeff offered something rare: patience, steadiness, and kindness. That's the kind of legacy that doesn't fade. Leonardo DiCaprio's journey began not on a red carpet, but in the crowded, uncertain corridors of Los Angeles, casting calls. As a child of divorced parents, he split his early years between the modest apartment he shared with his mother, Ermeline, and weekends exploring bookstores and fringe culture with his father, George. Theirs was a life held together by resilience and creativity. While financial comfort was elusive, imagination was abundant, and from the outset, DiCaprio was steeped in storytelling. Whether through the comics his father collected or the whispered narratives passed between relatives who had weathered immigration and reinvention. By the age of 5, Leonardo's curiosity for performance was unmistakable. He began attending auditions, sometimes hundreds a year, often returning home with little more than a polite thank you. Rejection came early and often, but it never hollowed his spirit. It sharpened it. His first professional work came in the form of short television commercials. He hawked bubblegum, cereal, and Matchbox cars with brighted charisma, unknowingly building a foundation in camera presence, timing, and professionalism. These 30-second snippets may have been fleeting for viewers, but for Leo they were master classes. School, meanwhile, was less instructive. Traditional classrooms left him restless. He bounced between public institutions like the Los Angeles Center for Enriched Studies and John Marshall High, but his real education took place elsewhere, on film sets, in script margins, and through the constant recalibration of a life lived in public and in progress. His father, a distributor of underground comics and an early environmental advocate, seeded a sense of ecological responsibility in him that would later bloom into global activism. From George, he inherited both a love of nature and a watchful eye on systems of power. The emotional terrain of DiCaprio's youth was shaped as much by economic uncertainty as by familial love. He watched friends from his neighborhood get pulled into gangs or overwhelmed by addiction. Acting wasn't just a creative outlet. It was a lifeline, a chance to rewrite a future that too often felt predetermined. These experiences would inform not only his later philanthropic focus, but also the emotional depth of the characters he portrayed. By his early teens, that depth began to find a stage. Guest spots on shows like Growing Pains and Parenthood gave him his first brush with television storytelling. The roles were brief, but each one was an apprenticeship in timing, tone, and the mechanics of ensemble performance. Even then, casting directors noted his unique blend of vulnerability and gravitas, qualities not often found in someone so young. Beneath the surfer blonde hair and witty-eyed wonder was a boy already wrestling with big questions. What makes someone good? What does it mean to belong? These early chapters, audition rooms, dual households, modest commercials, might seem unremarkable in hindsight, yet they were the crucible in which a lifelong commitment to craft, empathy, and purpose was forged. Long before Leonardo DiCaprio would captivate the world, he was a teenager searching for something more lasting than fame, meaning, integrity, and a chance to tell stories that mattered. Leonardo DiCaprio's true emergence as a serious actor came not with fanfare, but through roles that demanded more than charm. They asked for emotional vulnerability, raw truth, and the kind of fearlessness that few teenagers could summon. At just 18, he was cast opposite Robert De Niro in This Boy's Life, 1993, a role that would reshape his trajectory. As Toby Wolfe, a young boy enduring a volatile stepfather, DiCaprio was neither overshadowed by De Niro nor intimidated by the dark material. Instead, he met the moment with astonishing depth. The audition alone had stunned casting directors. He brought such ferocity to the screen test that it felt less like acting and more like revelation. That performance opened the door to what would become one of his most acclaimed early roles. Ari Grape in What's Eating? Gilbert Grape, 1993. Still just a teenager, DiCaprio immersed himself in the life of a neurodivergent boy with such authenticity that audiences and critics alike were moved beyond words. There was no vanity in the portrayal, only honesty. His physicality was meticulous, his emotional range startlingly refined. For this work, he received his first Academy Award nomination at the age of 19. It was a rare acknowledgement, not just of youthful talent, but of profound artistic promise. These two performances established a pattern that would define DiCaprio's career, a refusal to settle for surface-level storytelling. He wasn't chasing stardom. He was chasing truth. In the years that followed, casting agents and directors came to see him not as a fleeting teen idol, but as an actor with the capacity to anchor weighty, morally complex narratives. He had entered the industry with wide eyes. But by the mid-1990s, Leonardo DiCaprio had proven he was more than a rising star. He was a force to be reckoned with, a performer driven not by fame, but by an unrelenting pursuit of meaning through his craft. By the mid-1990s, Leonardo DiCaprio had transitioned from promising newcomer to a name on every casting director's lips. Yet, he was about to step onto a stage few could have predicted, one where stardom met seismic cultural impact. In Baz Luhrmann's modern retelling of Romeo plus Juliet, 1996, DiCaprio's performance showcased his uncanny ability to fuse classic emotion with kinetic modern energy. He captured the timeless ache of first love in a world saturated by neon and noise. Audiences felt the sincerity behind his eyes, as though youth and tragedy collapsed under the weight of a single glance. It was his first hint of global magnetism, an aura that would only intensify with his next role. Then came 1997, and Titanic erupted. Cast as Jack Dawson, a Peniel's artist who falls hopelessly for the aristocratic Rose, Kate Winslet, DiCaprio stepped into cinematic history. Under James Cameron's direction, he embodied the youthful urgency and fearless devotion that pulled 20th-century romance from the screen and into the hearts of millions. When Jack shouted, "I'm the king of the world," he wasn't just speaking lines. He was voicing a generation's longing for escape and transcendence. The film shattered box office records and transformed DiCaprio into a global icon. But with adoration came peril. Leomania bloomed, and along with it, the threat of being boxed into the same image forever. Faced with these twin forces, he made a choice that proved to be as bold as any role. Rather than wrap himself in romantic hero tropes, he chose challenge. He sought complexity. Characters defined not by charm, but by moral ambiguity and emotional depth. That decision led him in 2002 to Martin Scorsese's side in Gangs of New York. Working opposite towering talents like Daniel Day-Lewis, DiCaprio entered Scorsese's mythic world of violence, corruption, and survival. His Amsterdam Valon was no polished leading man, but a character of wounded drive, caught between revenge and reconciliation. Scorsese tested him. DiCaprio answered with nuanced internal shifts and a presence that soared without pyrotechnics. That collaboration was more than a role. It was a rebirth. With Gangs, he transitioned from youthful idol to serious talent, recalibrating his star power toward substance. It was neither the peak of his fame nor the root of a new type casting. It was a pivot, a redefinition of what a Hollywood star could be. Fearless, introspective, capable of personal reinvention. Strategic instincts began guiding his choices. Instead of following the gravitational pull of romantic mainstream, he leaned into directors who would demand transformation. This willingness to step away from commercial security and toward uncharted artistic territory would come to define his career. A mix of ambition and tact, growth and grace. Leomania remained, but it became one facet of a larger portrait of an artist continually asking, "What kind of story does my next role allow me to tell?" By the early 2000s, Leonardo DiCaprio had become much more than a face on the marquee. He was a seasoned actor whose hunger for truth led him toward deeper, more nuanced storytelling. Never content to replay his youth, he leaned into roles that demanded psychological rigor, emotional bravery, and ethical complexity. In Catch Me If You Can, 2002, directed by Steven Spielberg, DiCaprio slipped into the skin of Frank Abagnale Jr., the teenage con artist who reinvented himself with every signature. It was a light-footed yet layered performance, slick charm, cloaked in desperation. Opposite Tom Hanks, DiCaprio demonstrated an evolving emotional intelligence, imbuing the character's grand deceptions with a sense of longing for familial connection. The performance danced between bravado and vulnerability and revealed an actor attuned to tone and texture. Later that year, he returned to the cutting intensity of The Aviator. In Martin Scorsese's biopic, DiCaprio portrayed Howard Hughes, the visionary turned recluse, whose quest for innovation was matched only by his descent into obsessive impulsiveness. The role demanded both commanding presence and minute. DiCaprio showed Hughes's genius in unwavering precision, his hands exacting in motion, his gaze full of promise before letting us look into the darker shadows of his mind. It was a performance that balanced awe with unease and earned him a Golden Globe while deepening his standing as an actor unafraid to explore the edges of genius and madness. With The Departed 2006 again under Scorsese's guidance, DiCaprio pushed moral boundaries even further. As undercover cop Billy Costigan, he operated within a world of blurred loyalties and deceit. His performance was suffocated with tension, every glance and gesture betraying the weight of duplicity. Through him, we felt the claustrophobic tension of an identity split in two. It was a role that called for emotional endurance as much as technical skill, and it reaffirmed DiCaprio's growing reputation for immersive character work. Yet, perhaps the most surprising turns came when he embraced darker arcs. In Django Unchained 2012, DiCaprio played Calvin Candy, a plantation owner dripping in cruelty and charm. The role required no empathy from the audience, but demanded the kind of fearless immersion only a few actors can achieve. DiCaprio's candy was magnetic, repugnant, unforgettable, an exercise in moral corruption brought so compellingly to life that viewers couldn't look away. It was an assertion. He would play the villain and he would own it. Then came The Wolf of Wall Street, 2013. Channeling the manic energy of Jordan Belfort, DiCaprio conducted a 3-hour symphony of seduction, greed, comedy, and chaos. An intoxicating performance that showed his extraordinary range. He laughed freely, screamed prophetically, raged recklessly, and seduced the screen with unsettling magnetism. Through it all, he never lost grounding. His Joker-like wit always teetered on the brink of something darker. It wasn't just a role. It was a metamorphosis that pulled back the curtain on ambition's cost. And finally, in The Revenant 2015, DiCaprio gave the performance of a lifetime. As frontiersman Hugh Glass, he embarked on a brutal odyssey of survival and revenge. The job was punishing, filmed in sub-zero extremes against real wilderness with minimal dialogue. He ate raw bison liver, crawled through snowbanks, and held internal agony on film with terrifying authenticity. When he finally received his Oscar in 2016 for Best Actor, it was more than an accolade. It was a testament to his relentless dedication, his capacity to merge body, mind, and spirit in the pursuit of truth. These performances don't just mark career highlights, they map an evolution. From charming thief to obsessed industrialist, to conflicted lawman to monstrous villain to primal survivor. Through each, DiCaprio deepened his craft, choosing partnerships with filmmakers who challenged him most. His artistic journey isn't measured in box office totals alone. It's traced in the emotional depth, ethical inquiry, and creative boldness he brought to every role. With each character he inhabited, Leonardo DiCaprio redefined what it means to pursue excellence, reminding us that true artistry never stops growing or daring to transform. For Leonardo DiCaprio, authenticity on screen has always demanded a toll off it. One he was willing to pay with discipline, mindfulness, and relentless preparation. The evolution of his craft has been matched by an evolution of his physical and mental care, a regimen as structured as any performance plan. From his early 20s onward, DiCaprio built a training routine that mirrored his ambition. Daily cardio, targeted strength workouts, shadow boxing, yoga, and pilates. His commitment wasn't about sculpted abs or magazine appearances. It was about endurance, building a body capable of carrying a character through emotional extremes and environmental extremes alike. Trainers specify he matched workouts to role demands, lean and agile for the basketball diaries, capacious and sturdy for the aviator, battle-ready for the Wolf of Wall Street. But no workout could shield him from the intensity of roles like Jack and Titanic filmed in freezing water tanks or the icy wilderness of The Revenant, where he huddled under animal skins and endured hand-sculpted glaciers. In Django Unchained, a simple dinner scene left him nursing a deep glass cut. He pushed forward through stitches and pain. Because to Leo, physical boundaries often marked thresholds of emotional truth. These onset pressures led him to build a deliberate holistic recovery system. Nutritionist designed plant-forward meals, Roman IV infusions to restore electrolytes, therapeutic cold plunges post-workout, and infrared sauna sessions to flush out soreness became routine. Meditation and breath work were woven into his daily cadence, tools he turned to after the physical pulse of a scene to reconnect with calm. But perhaps the greatest evolution came in his mental wellness. As supernatural adulation and tabloid glare followed Titanic, DiCaprio recognized the need for inner footing. He imposed strict boundaries, no personal social media, limited public appearances, and an intentional shift toward therapy and mindfulness. He relied on cognitive behavioral techniques and onset trainers to help compartmentalize character from self. Close associates note that when a crowd's collective scream gripped him at a premiere, he would calmly excuse himself, step back, and ground himself through breathing. An exercise as simple as it was effective. Over time, he formalized this practice. Therapy sessions became routine, scheduled like workouts, and periodic silent retreats helped him reset after emotionally taxing shoots like The Revenant or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. By his late 40s, DiCaprio's focus shifted from sheer endurance to sustainable care. His training emphasized low-impact cardio and injury prevention, especially after early back complaints. His diet, once focused on role prep, evolved into a core part of his environmental advocacy, largely plant-based meals, ethically sourced proteins, and hydration rooted in eco-conscious practices. Even rest days were intentional. Meditation, restorative yoga, forest bathing, simple acts that reinforced his belief that healing could fuel creativity. This holistic approach has become a blueprint for his teams, production crews, characters, and fans alike. He treats the body like a vehicle and the mind like ground control. Both essential, both deserving attention. In interviews, he speaks of mental health not as an afterthought, but as critical to craft. Preparation isn't just physical. He once said it's emotional and spiritual too. In an industry built on youth and spectacle, DiCaprio has crafted a sustainable model, a creative endurance plan for artists who plan to continue evolving, not just dazzling. He proved that a leading man can also be a steward of his own well-being. And in doing so, he brought in the definition of strength. For Leonardo DiCaprio, health isn't a contract. It's a covenant, a daily practice in service of truth, artistry, and longevity. Loss has been a quiet companion throughout Leonardo DiCaprio's life, a force that has carved depth, shaped purpose, and tempered fame with introspection. The first tremor came with the passing of his maternal grandfather Wilhelm in 1995, just as Romeo plus Juliet catapulted him to global prominence. Leo referred to him as OPA, a gentle guiding presence who had instilled in him a sense of responsibility and environmental awareness long before they were mainstream concerns. His loss arrived at the threshold of celebrity, teaching Leo that acclaim could amplify absence and that grief could deepen empathy. A similar tenderness came with the death of his grandmother, Helen Inden Birkin, in 2008. She had been a wartime survivor who immigrated to the U.S. and in her 90s still attended his premieres, proudly perched on crutches. On set for Shutter Island, Leo took leave to attend her funeral in Germany, carrying that loss into his performance. Friends note that he quietly dedicated deeper emotional wells to her memory, reminding him that art and love are inseparable. Friendship, too, brought painful departures. He was deeply affected by the loss of River Phoenix, whose potential had mirrored his own, extinguished too soon. The news left him determined not to squander his talent. Years later, when Heath Ledger's passing flashed across the Oscars in 2008, Leo sat in hushed acknowledgement, his friend and fellow artist gone before his time. These losses stirred a resolve in him to channel grief into craft, urgency into empathy. Private heartbreaks arrived more softly. The end of relationships rarely splashed across tabloids, yet each demanded emotional adjustment. These closures reinforced the fragility of intimacy under the spotlight and the discipline required to honor love quietly rather than perform it. Family health challenges soon followed. His father's emergency bypass surgery in 2017 prompted Leo to pause pre-production on Killers of the Flower Moon to stand by his side. He used the moment to spearhead resources, securing rehabilitation support for his father while quietly donating to the American Heart Association. The joint ordeal reinforced their bond and underscored the idea that personal crises can redirect influence toward healing. The same year, his mother faced early-stage osteoporosis, an ailment he addressed through public awareness and research-backed nutritional support. Rather than retreat into private worry, he approached both family and fans with transparency, modeling how caring for aging parents can be woven into a public life of influence. Perhaps more insidiously, environmental devastation has become a personal wound. Witnessing the Bartons coral reefs bleach or the Arctic's thinning sea ice, Leo has often referred to his grief in these losses as existential mourning. He has carried the sorrow of nature's decline like a burden and turned it into a mission. Time spent in isolated forests writing before the flood or traveling to activist summits served as both retreat and vow. Grief, when transformed, can fuel purpose. Each of these losses, relational, familial, environmental, has shaped DiCaprio's heart and actions. He hasn't avoided them. He's honored them. He has welcomed the vulnerability that comes with saying goodbye and used it to deepen his performances, amplify his philanthropy, and root his presence in accountability. Through mourning, he learned not just what to lose, but what to protect: creativity, connection, and the planet we share. In Leo's world, grief is not a detour, it's a guide. And from it, he continues to draw curiosity, strength, and an unwavering commitment to both art and the common good. For Leonardo DiCaprio, environmentalism is far more than a cause. It's a calling rooted in early lessons from his father and deepened by personal encounters with a changing planet. In 1998, he laid the foundation for what would become a worldwide movement by establishing the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation. Born of genuine concern, the foundation invests across continents, protecting wildlife, defending indigenous rights, supporting reforestation, and funding marine conservation. Every project reflects a simple belief that individual voices, when amplified, can shift the arc of preservation. His advocacy found a global stage in his role as a United Nations messenger of peace. From UN assemblies to international climate summits, DiCaprio has used his platform to speak directly to world leaders. He reminds policymakers and global audiences that climate change is not distant. It's personal. He's crossed the Arctic to film melting glaciers, stood before world leaders urging them toward action, and spoken frankly in televised spots that rival any documentary's urgency. Behind the camera, too, he's wielded influence, producing and narrating documentaries like Before the Flood. He uses storytelling to translate complex science into emotional clarity. He invests in drone-enabled reforestation, solar-powered infrastructure, and sustainable agriculture. Technology-driven efforts that simultaneously respect and protect Earth's resources. Whether funding alternative protein startups or supporting solar microgrids, his approach is pragmatic and forward-looking. Solutions at scale require innovation backed by capital. Social media has become another battleground. When posts surface images of coral bleaching, rainforest loss, or polar bears stranded, he doesn't just share. They carry scientific context calls for petitions and donation links. He transforms awareness into action, turning individual empathy into collective pressure. His Instagram feed feels less like a celebrity page and more like a curated activism channel capable of reaching millions with both urgency and hope. Leo's environmental journey is not a sideline. It's central to his legacy. He aims not just to preserve nature, but to align global imagination with planetary survival. In doing so, he reminds us that advocacy isn't about celebrity. It's about responsibility, evidence, and empathy. And in his voice, the world hears not an echo, but an invitation to act together before it's too late. Today, Leonardo DiCaprio's life unfolds at the intersection of creativity, sustainability, and purpose. He resides in a thoughtfully designed solar-powered home nestled in the Hollywood Hills, an anchor tuned to his environmental ethos. Rainwater collection and a native plant garden art decor. Their deliberate choices, daily reminders that care can live in every detail. His approach to film reflects the same intention. No longer driven by quantity, he selectively embraces roles that challenge, provoke, and resonate with social meaning. Behind the lens, his production company A&W supports documentaries and indie films rooted in activism from climate truth to social justice. He chooses stories that echo real-world urgency, believing that cinema can guide not just entertainment, but consciousness. Beyond film, DiCaprio channels his resources into sustainable ventures from alternative proteins to carbon emission technologies, aligning investments with ideals. These ventures reinforce his vision, wealth with purpose, profit rooted in planetary care. He also supports voter registration and civic education, viewing democracy as a foundation for lasting change. His philanthropy here is quiet but strategic. Scholarships for underserved youth, grants for grassroots campaigns, and partnerships with NASA's working to raise electoral participation. But his ambition extends beyond roles and balance sheets. He aspires to be an architect of cultural ecosystems, one where art, activism, and enterprise form a feedback loop. Instead of stepping back, he's stepping up, partnering with scientists to shape narrative frameworks, funding storytelling tools for changemakers, and advocating for inclusion in award-giving bodies through the Academy and beyond. He fosters protocols that elevate diverse voices while holding media accountable for representation. This vision may not manifest in billboards. It emerges in mentorship of young filmmakers exploring climate justice, in institutes equipping voters with media literacy skills, and in boardrooms where environmental and social impact influence funding and distribution pipelines. Leo once said, "Your greatest role is the one you play off camera." That ethos has defined his present and increasingly his future. With every project and every investment, he's assembling platforms where art serves purpose, where community informs creativity, and where influence is measured by ecosystems healed. At a time when celebrity often means spotlight, DiCaprio's path offers something different. A model of enduring impact woven quietly into homes, institutions, and communities. In his carefully chosen silence and intentional actions, we find a legacy in the making, not just of a storied career, but of a steward shaping trajectories beyond the screen.